Just double check my mics are on. Today's meeting, I think, is kind of something that can apply to all of us. Whether you think you have a brand or not, okay, mics are on, you do have a brand. And I hope we're going to get through that today. So I want a little audience interaction today. So feel free, there's no right or wrong answers, but this is more fun if we kind of go through some of this stuff together. So first question today, and instead of this being an internal coaching question, what is a brand? No wrong answers. When I say what a brand is.
A memory of someone or something when you think of something.
A memory of something, okay, cool.
The perception someone has on you.
Perceptions of people on you. I'm just repeating because I'm the only one with a mic.
Like an ideal.
Explain more, you said an ideal?
Yeah, like when you think of it, you think of like a way of living or a mindset or...
Okay,
like
cool. A way of living, a mindset, a set of ideals. The marketer in the room?
Their company's reputation?
The reputation, okay, so your track record or like the collective history.
Usually like a visual, like logo or something.
So logo, graphics, things like that, like the brand image. Who hasn't answered yet?
Set values.
Set of values, yeah.
Like a theme.
A theme, okay, cool. What about behind the camera? Isaac, what's a brand?
I kind of named everything.
He says, yeah, what all they said?
Who you are, like who, what, and why you, like why they. Who.
Okay, like the W questions, being able to answer
that's
that.
kinda how I see it. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so a little deeper question then. What is a personal brand then? Because I think when we think of brands, we think of like big companies and logos and things we can all relate to. But if I said then if I agree, let's say everybody's answer was right there, which I think it was.
Celebrity.
Oh, celebrity. So
Like an endorsement or like somebody who's built a reputation doing something else, but then changing it to do something else. So say like Angelina Jolie, she was like a movie star, but now she's like an ambassador and a humanitarian. That's her personal brand.
okay, so Josh is referencing like an actress who then became more than that. Like they became a humanitarian, started charities. Like you kind of move from one thing to another. It's interesting.
Yeah, I would say an individual or a person, not a company or a business.
Yeah, for sure. And so what do you think makes a personal brand different than a corporate brand?
They're like their own values, like it's something they believe in and like have made it so everyone else kind of values the same thing.
Cool, yeah. You look like you were going to say something?
It's basically the same thing, just on a much smaller scale, right? Like it's just like an individual scale versus...
It's just one instead of a group of people all acting the same? Yeah, I think that's a great insight.
It kind of humanizes it. Like you can tell when someone has sold out, like when they move too corporate away from a personal brand. Like a personal brand is more, you can relate to that person.
Okay, I thought you were going somewhere different with that, so I'm going to hold my thought. But I was like, oh, you're getting to one of my later slides, but we'll come back to that. So Josh was talking about a personal brand feels more personal, or you could like sell out and become corporate. But those are interesting because what do those two different things mean? They probably mean different things to all of us. If they like, oh, you used to be cool, man, you used to be indie. Now you're a sellout. You sold out to the man. I love this. It's interesting because it's one of these topics where I think we all have a little bit of a sense, but nobody's maybe really went to school to understand, maybe other than Carson, what a brand is or how you create one. I remember the game we played with the cards back at Wellington one time. I was like going to text you and see if you brought those, but I'm like, that's not going to be fun for Zoom for us to play the brand card game. Okay, I'm going to throw some brands up on the screen. And without a smartass answer, because we can all make joke answers, but what do you actually think of these brands? Right? What comes to mind when I put one of these logos up here? Right? And these are some iconic big ones. So the majority of this room has one of these in their pocket or on their computer. Some of us don't. But what comes to mind when you see this logo? What is this brand all about? Innovation, technology. Just a product name, iPhone, yeah, iPods, AirPods.
Think different.
Think different, which is their tagline, yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's old school. They don't lean on it as much anymore, but they used to.
Like leading edge.
The leading edge. Do you think they purposely make?
The option.
Yeah, that's it. Like if you want a blue text message, you're stuck. Yeah. So it's interesting. We all have different words. I saw some head nodding, but do you think they're trying to make you think of those things, or that's just what's happened over time?
Both.
Yeah, both, right?
Very deliberate.
I think they're very deliberate because they're one of the best branded companies in the world. Here's another one. What does this brand stand for?
Works.
Just do
just do it. So their tagline, right? So they've got you brainwashed. That's good. What are their values? What does this brand stand for? What makes Nike different than Reebok or Adidas?
Strive for excellence.
Okay, excellence. Ooh, maybe they're not that strong of a brand.
They've lost a lot of, for me personally, I don't care for Nike at all. There's too much negative around how they make their products or overselling, overpriced. I don't think good things about Nike.
So they've ruined their brand for you.
For me.
Yeah. Were you agreeing with Josh? You had something else?
Yeah, but I still, like, I was there on the weekend buying new shoes. Because I would pick Nike over Adidas. I don't know
Same.
why. I think maybe just because I grew up with it.
Right? Well, once a brand gets in your brain, it can be a very strong thing, which is why you might want to put some effort into your own brand. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, I thought the Nike one was going to be more. It's weird that we got a lot of crickets. I wonder, maybe it's getting confusing for the public what Nike actually stands for. Here's one that has had some ups and downs, but still is in it to win it. They're still probably the largest food manufacturer on the planet. What does this brand stand for, or try to stand for?
Big Macs.
Convenience, Big Macs. We got the golden arches.
Happy Meals.
Happy Meal. Isn't it funny they call their kids' meals an emotion? You think they did that on purpose? I think so, yeah. What else does McDonald's stand for? We got a big consumer in the room.
Lunch.
Just lunch. Just blanket, easy lunch. Yeah, my lunch. It's funny when we get into these things that sometimes it's hard to put them into words. The brands are really trying to communicate a feeling. But it is also interesting that these very simple logos, if they weren't companies we knew, you couldn't pick these things out from an Egyptian hieroglyph, right? Like, what does this mean? But now, back to what you were saying, a logo or an identity can be attached to all these feelings and meanings and history and draw you into a store for one reason or another just based on that swoosh on the building. This one, you can pull up to any city in the world almost, major city, and know what you're going to order, right? There might be one weird thing on the menu, but if you want a Big Mac and you see this in any city across the planet, you can pretty much go in there and know you're going to get the same product. And they've worked really hard for that. Okay,
Pancakes today for pancakes.
you got some McDonald's pancakes today?
Should've.
Oh, I didn't even know about,
Hot cakes, I think they're called.
yeah.
They're not very good.
Okay, here's a brand that we all are invested in. I'm curious, the next one, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this brand. Do you know by your fees and your association membership, you're allowed to use this? This is our brand. It's owned by Korea up here in Canada, and it's owned by NAR down in the States. We're the only ones allowed to use this word and this symbol, but what does this mean to you? We're a bunch of insiders. Josh, you have the pin on. So you're living the brand.
I wear it every day. I believe realtor is all about camaraderie. So the whole point of this was organized real estate. So if you were a realtor, it didn't matter where you were, anywhere in the world, you would have access to everything that every other realtor has so that you guys could cooperate and serve the client better. And that's kind of the...
So Josh's answer was about realtors cooperating together. I'm going to throw in there's probably an assumed level of professionalism. You know you can call another realtor and work together on that property. It's an interesting interpretation. We all are part of this. What does this logo or brand mean to anybody else in this room?
I don't really have any thoughts towards it.
Right? Ooh, okay. Korea's not doing their job with our fees.
So I'm not a realtor.
Okay, Carson works with realtors all day but doesn't hold a license.
I would say legitimacy, because we all know that there's other companies or other ways to sell your house. I could sell my house right now and not use a realtor, but having that brand behind it legitimizes it to a certain standard or a certain code of ethics.
Right, so and you see this with a lot of professional associations. There's the College of Massage Therapists, there's the personal trainers, there's, our home inspector was in the other day saying there is no standardization for home inspectors. So you can't stick a logo on it and say, I've received this designation, right? So this is a professional association that should represent something to the consumers. So let me change that. I know only maybe a few of us are potentially consumers in the room and not realtors, but what do you think the consumers' opinion of this logo is?
That person's authorized to sell real estate.
Okay, so it is a designation. Do you think this helps you? Then random Joe says, I can help sell your house? I don't know. These are interesting. Is everyone just on long weekend hangover today? Okay, more fun then. Let's go into personal brands. And I just picked some random people, but how about this guy? One of the most famous Canadians.
Believer.
He's a believer, so you got it. That's, again, there's like a tagline. What is this guy's personal brand? It's changed a lot over the years. He seems to be immune to being canceled or being shut down for his, keeps reinventing himself. So what is anyone a believer right now? What does he stand for right now? What's he all about?
I just think, I don't know anything about Justin Bieber other than that he's very talented and he has completely utilized every aspect of popular culture. He knew, I mean with help I'm sure, but he knew exactly the fan base that he was playing to, and when that ran out, he pivoted, and I mean now he's into branding. I mean that guy's probably worth more than most people.
I think he just sold his, or it's in the middle of selling his previous catalog for like $800 million or something.
Athletes now.
Yeah, he's Drew and Toronto Maple Leafs collab and stuff.
Yeah, doing collabs, and collabs are a part of associating yourself with a brand, right? Did anyone go out of their way to buy Timbits that were branded
For other people.
Biebs Bits,
Yeah.
right?
No, but I mean,
And you might have went and spent more money that week at Tim Hortons because, and I think he was paired up with Vespa for a while, right? And if he drops an album today, it's almost guaranteed. Much like a movie star, right? They're going to hire that lead actor because of the actor's brand to draw the audience in. Okay, here's another one. This guy just came through a career-changing moment. What's this guy's brand? You don't know this
I
guy?
had no idea who it was. I'm so bad with sports.
It's LeBron James, as my kids would say. What's his brand? He's a pretty popular basketball player. Man, I picked the wrong people today. Well, he calls himself, or the world calls him,
The goat?
no,
Is he the goat?
King James.
King.
Yeah.
King James, right? I think his brand too stands for different things. Like if you are a fan of his, you might see work ethic and a longevity of a career. If you're a LeBron James hater, you might think he's a little bit of a whiner, or the refs give him easy calls sometimes. It kind of depends whose side of the fence you're on,
I
but
have 2 pairs of LeBron
See, if you had
shoes.
put Michael Jordan up there, I would have been able to tell you all sorts of stuff.
yeah, Michael, who? He's ancient news
Is
now.
that what's going on?
I think Michael Jordan wasn't even number one. It was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He just passed to be the all-time scorer ever in NBA history just like a couple games ago. Okay, I got one more.
I'm excited about the next one.
I can see it from here.
How about this guy?
Oh, stop.
He just changed it too. For Infro.
That's true.
Yeah, for years, your image was your brand, but as we're seeing, the picture isn't the brand. What is Josh's brand?
His hair, the guy with the big hair.
That's what the image, that's the logo. But what's his brand? What do you know about Josh? And you could have him introduce him to somebody else. What would the public know about Josh, his constituents? Sorry?
Reliable.
He's a reliable guy,
Hates golf.
caring guy.
Community focused.
He's a community champion. Yeah. And those are all things that are far beyond the hair, but the hair represents. The afro is the logo, you see. It's not the brand. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Okay. So you guys gave me a lot of answers earlier. And this is where I think a lot of people get caught up, is they think a brand is a logo, or it's a set of colors, or it's a nice little font. But it's not, right? A lot of you got the answer right at the beginning of the meeting. A brand is a set of, sorry, here's my definition. A brand is the sum of how a product, business, or person is perceived by the public. So you have a brand whether you think you do or not, because guess what? The world's full of opinions. So your friends and family, they have a brand opinion of you. Strangers maybe don't because they've never met you before. You can control a brand through your marketing or advertising or your messaging. You control your brand. Who said reputation earlier, right? Based on what you've done before, you've established that brand, right? And that's all, it's our values and our systems of belief and our reputation. That's your brand. Now, the logo is the symbol that represents all that stuff. And if you do it right, now a swoosh can represent a lot of things. Your face can represent expectations people have, and it can set you up for an easier future. So the key things here are thinking about personal branding is like, do I have a personal brand? What do people who don't know me think about me? What would my friends say to me if they were introducing me to a stranger, right? I'm sure you were saying, not to pick on Mr. LaRouche here, but you were saying you're having a first weekend away with your girlfriend's parents, right? Now, it's the first time they met you in person, but it's definitely not the first time they heard about you, right? How did that go? Did the first meeting, was it warm, right? We'll cut this from the video. No, I'm just joking. But I used to have this thing I was saying to my wife all the time. It's like, if your in-laws have a bad opinion of you, who did they get that opinion from, right?
Well, they all followed me on social media beforehand.
Yeah.
They've all seen all my social media stuff, so obviously the first
Unbelievably hardworking.
No, it's always how's the market? What's the real estate market like? It's always interest rates and all those conversations.
Oh yeah, so you had the big realtor brand already stuck on you, right? So it's interesting, like people can get a perception of you from your social media now before they ever meet you, or from making YouTube videos and stuff. You're trying to build up a certain brand before you walk in the door, right, with all that media. Or your friends have introduced you to somebody. Which movie is that? It was it Donnie Brasco or Goodfellas or one of this, like he's a friend of the family, right? So the person who introduces you is vouching for you, so you're getting a piece of their brand, right? A collab with somebody else is like, if this guy says this person's good, I'm getting some of their brand value attached to me. So all this is happening. It really is, it's like how people are perceiving you, but the real question is, if you knew you could control that or influence it, would you put effort into that, right? How would you want to be perceived on your first introduction to your girlfriend's parents? How would you want to be perceived as you walked in the door for that next listing presentation? What opinions or words or thoughts would you want that person or that person who's about to hire you or work with you or potentially give you a raise, right? What do you want them to think of you? And are you actively working to control that through your actions, right? Not just your marketing, but through the way you are. So we have a complicated industry, right? Because we have, like we saw the realtor logo, so we have an industry brand, the entire career. Some people like realtors and swear by them. We've all bumped into people who are like, painted us with the wrong brush, right? Or the industry has, that we're overpaid, or that the last person who worked with me, so that someone else who wears that pin can wreck the brand for you, right? So we've got that layer. Then you've got the actual brand of being a realtor, not just the real estate industry. You've got a company. So whether we're with Real Brokerage. Hey Josh, your guest's here. We've got Real Brokerage for our team, but there's a dozen other. You could be with Remax, Century 21, you could be with Keller Williams, you could be with EXP. And that layer is gonna have its own opinions and layers with it. Then you might be here on the crew or another team, and there's another brand layer, right? You've got the logo, 1, 2 logos, there's a logo on a hat. We're all in a branded room, right? So we've got this extra brand layer, and then you've got your own self as a human. Anyone confused yet? We've got a real estate industry, the real estate logos, we've got a company, we've got a team, and where do we fit into all this, right? So I think this is where we struggle as individual realtors, is trying to figure out what is our personal brand and how do we define it. So here's how we get started. And I'm telling you, it's not by designing a logo. I mean, that's a fun place to start, but it's not really what the brand is. You're skipping over. The logo can be anything, as you've seen with Nike or McDonald's or any of these symbols. I mean, who picked the image of an apple for a computer company? But now it's the most iconic recognition of technology and innovation there is. It has nothing to do with microprocessors or chips, right? So by focusing on the logo first, the logo doesn't actually mean anything. It's the values and the actions and the perceptions you attach to the logo that mean something. So we start with your values, right? Is anyone clear on their own values? You journal these a lot? It's gonna help in life. This might get into my mindset talks, but very early in my career, I picked honesty, transparency, trust, technology, service, and results. You heard Chuck was here last week, Chuck Charlton, for our presentation. He had a very clear set of 6 values. What have we all decided our core value is?
I am because we are.
Thank you. I am because we are. We've picked that, right? Now that's a fun word to say, but now it's like, how do we actually live that value? Can our daily actions, the way we interact with the public, the way we market ourselves, does that all layer in there? So being clear on what your values are and also loving the values of each layer above you. So hopefully that realtor logo is the same subset of values down here as yourself, right, Josh? The next thing to focus on is what are your strengths, right? So you might as well lead with what you're good at or what you're best at. If you're a hard worker, right? If you're a great graphic designer, if you're the most ambitious 18-year-old I've ever met, right? You've got these things. If you're a community champion, leaning into that is going to be a lot easier than trying to go build a brand on your weaknesses. I know that sounds a little basic, but you've got to start by looking in the mirror when you're defining a brand. The next is our skills, right? What are we really good at? What do we provide to the customer or the world at a higher level naturally? And then we package that all into, what do I want to be known for? If I'd left the world tomorrow, what would they be saying at my funeral, right? And we can package this all together, and that is your brand. Now, whether people know it or not, that's a communication issue, but your brand's there. Now, the more public you are, the more branded you're going to be. So to what we were talking about earlier, brand identity, that's our logos, right? Now, we do want to match on that. You don't want necessarily, if you have a very serious brand and then you use like Comic Sans as your font, there's going to be a misalignment between what you say you are and how it looks in print. And if you say you're super professional, that's how you feel, but you show up in flip-flops and board shorts to work every day, you can still be super professional, but that's not going to be the image you're projecting out in the world, right? If somebody else asks, give me a few words to describe this photo of this guy in board shorts, they're probably not going to start with, oh, professional and all put together. So this is where we get our identity alignment with our true values. This making sense? Okay, cool. So if you are putting together a brand identity, we've got a certain little kit. It starts with a logo, probably has a set of colors. Carson and I spent a lot of time working on this, right? You probably have a certain set of fonts, typefaces. Then, but a little more touchy-feely is like you have a voice or an emotion, right? A way of communicating, a tone, a way of acting. And that comes through not just in words, but through imagery and through the way your stuff's laid out, right? You can see people who do this really well, there's this consistency. Something can look like the brand without having the logo on it, right? Someone could be identified as a member of the crew without having to wear the hat every day by the way they hold themselves or the way they act. Josh, you just said to me the other day, my old company, Redline, right? You said you bumped into someone that used to work for our company, and you can always tell someone that was trained or brought up in our system, even though we don't work together anymore. Well, there's a brand there, right? Those values that we instilled in someone's training as a realtor have carried through, and you can recognize that out there in someone, which was kind of nice to hear. Thanks, buddy. So, the thing to remember is we don't have to overcomplicate this. Remember I showed you that slide, it's already complicated. You've got an industry, you've got a realtor logo, you've got a company set of brands and values, you potentially have a team, and then you have yourself. You don't have to overcomplicate it at this level. The basic personal brand you already have, and all of us already have. Your company name is your name, Morgan LeBlanc Inc., Jeff Thibodeau Inc., right? You don't even need ink, that's a bit pretentious. We got Carson, the brand, right? Riley, the brand. Your logo is right here, right? If you look at a lot of other companies, they actually are trying their best to use faces instead of their logo. Go look at any billboard out there. For any service-based company, insurance, mortgage, it's just somebody's giant face. Yet we're trying to put our face away and stick a big logo up there, right? Faces are super recognizable, super humanizing, and we already are born with one. Unique. It's like a fingerprint, unless you have a twin, I guess. But this is your brand, right? The values is how we do it. So this is the difference, right? Our personal brand, let me go back a couple steps here. If you lean into it, you've already got a brand name, right? We don't have to make it any more complicated. You've already got a logo, but your real brand is how you do it. It's how you make decisions. It's how you push up against tough times. It's how you deal with a tough client. It's how you celebrate wins. It's how you deliver great service. It's how you answer the phone. It's what your voicemail says. That's all needs to be in alignment. And it takes a little thought to make sure that that's happening. You can do a little brand audit. Ask a bunch of random people what they think of you. So if we do this right as a company, which I've had to do for lots of years, for my own companies and back as a market research company, if you're really clear on this brand layer, what you do is you push all your decisions through it. You have an idea over here, and it either bounces off the brand layer, no, that's not in alignment, or we take an idea and then we pass it through the brand and it comes out the other side feeling like the company. So here on this team, we have an idea and it better pass through a filter of IM because it's going to come out the other side. It's not going to feel like the crew, right? Or something happens with a client and you don't treat it that way. You treat IM because I am, comes through and the brand breaks. Does that make sense? So Josh, you're a community leader and some scandal comes out, not for you, but we've seen this with politicians, right? And instantly what happens to their brand reputation? When you find out this upstanding citizen has been found to be cheating on his wife. That hasn't happened in the news lately, has it? It wrecks that person's brand instantly. It just crumbles, right? Because the rest of their brand values were propped up. Someone who does this wouldn't align with this, and the public reputation dissolves. And that can happen with a company too. Oh, I'm a slide ahead of myself. So I thought you were getting to this earlier. Anyone ever seen a brand get ruined? We live in cancel culture. This is probably the most modern time where this happens the most. Old brands used to be almost uncancelable, but now what happens, right? Somebody takes it up, a Karen. The brand of Karen has done poorly in the last 10 years, by the way.
There's been no kids in the States named Karen since 2017.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But the problem is if someone finds something even in your past that doesn't align with what you're trying to say you are, they're going to shove that in your face and say, see, you're not consistent, right? And this is really important because we are public personas. We get our business by being out there in the world, having to be on performance, on stage, and be hired by someone to trust us. So we do something over here that deems us untrustworthy, and you might collapse your whole future pipeline of business.
It takes 25 years to build a reputation. It takes 5 seconds to destroy it.
That's a nice little, who told you that, or where'd you learn that?
Heard it online.
Yeah, Josh said that it can take 25 years to create a reputation and 5 minutes to destroy it. It can take 1 second to destroy it. One bad decision, one indiscretion, right? Now, I'm not saying you can't be yourself, right? It's just that you have to be in alignment. You can't have a brand that's built on all these values if you don't actually live them, unless you live a very private life in 2023, right? Because the cameras are out there. I was hearing on the, yeah, right? I got 3 cameras on me right now. Joe Rogan podcast the other day, they were talking about the founding of Vegas and how it was like Sin City, right? And they actually, at one time, I don't know what year, but you noticed, remember, we're of the same vintage, Ryan. The slogan of Vegas used to be,
What happened to Vegas stays in Vegas?
it's not anymore, right? Thanks to the internet. Because what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. It's instantly broadcast on Instagram. It's not a secret place anymore. I do remember the first time I went to Vegas, we didn't take cameras. I'm old enough that happened, right? We didn't have pocket phones. And it was like, camera stay at home, boys. It's Vegas weekend. Not that we were doing anything, too crazy. But now, what does everybody do in Vegas? Like, I'm in Vegas, right? So the whole slogan of that town has changed. And they've had to change their brand. Now it's this fun, family friendly. There's roller coasters and Cirque du Soleil shows. It's a different town. Okay.
It's like McDonald's, like when I was a kid, it was this bright, happy place. Now it's like,
Well, now it's this sophisticated cafe.
yeah. Exactly.
But they try really hard to keep reinventing. Remember, like McDonald's had pizza for a while, then salads, and now they've got coffee, and they're like, we're sticking around.
I went into Tim Hortons yesterday, and I was waiting in line with 10 other people, and the woman at the sandwich stand was making a bunch of burritos. And I was like, am I at Tim Hortons right now? Like, there were 10 burritos lined up, rice and meat and lettuce. And
Tim Hortons burritos.
that's
Wow.
what I'm doing now. Yeah, pizza. Like,
Old Timmy Hortons be rolling over in his grave.
prices, yeah.
Just wanted a yellow and brown cup of coffee. Here's the thing though, you look at some stuff, the cool thing is if the stronger you build a brand, the harder it is to break it, right? And once the opinions get stuck in someone's head, this is why it's, the longer you're in business as a realtor, the easier your career becomes. Because once someone can trust you, they're gonna trust you again in 7 years, and they're gonna tell their kids to trust you, and then their friends to trust you. And so as you build this reputation and you keep treating people well and you keep doing your job well, the job's gonna get easier and easier. But imagine if you break those values with just 1 or 2 clients, right? Or you're hopping around and providing inconsistent service and you're dropping the ball over here, it's never gonna build. So just like a good brand, you should build over time. And once you get that brand loyalty established, it's like cruise control. You actually don't even have to work that hard. Like Michelle was saying, she just like walked into the Nike store. She doesn't even know why, right? She's like, I'm buying Nike shoes. I don't know why. I'm not sure how to articulate it, but I just want them instead of Adidas. It's like, they're all made of rubber and fabric, right? It's not like Nike has some crazy technology of shoes that nobody else has. They've just gotten inside of our head. So let's remember to recap today's presentation. A brand is, number 1, how you are perceived. It's not what you think you are, it's what they think you are. That is your brand. If you want to remember one thing from today's opinion, you can choose what you want your brand, but your brand is actually, someone got it, maybe it was you almost nailed it. It's the sum opinions of the public, whether that's your customers or strangers or whoever, but it's their opinion is what your brand actually is today, right? We can go do a survey. I used to work at a market research company. They pay us lots of money to go figure this out. What does the public actually think? Your brand identity is just your logos and stuff. It's a very thin layer, but it's not your brand. Your brand is what people perceive and what those emotions or values that they say about you. Now we can control it by deciding what we stand for, what we value, and then we have to live and breathe it every day through our actions, through our marketing, through our customer service. That's where the brand gets built. You can build it through advertising, but if you advertise one thing and then you show up another thing, the brand breaks really quick, right? You can trick people a little bit, but it takes way more money to do it with marketing. So the last question, just to realign ourselves, is we want to make sure also that in all these layers, it makes sense, right? It's going to be easier, especially if you're paying fees. You're paying fees to a team leader, to a broker, up to Korea, right? That we absorb some of these brand layers too. We don't want to fight against it. Maybe if you do, we're in the wrong industry, right? But you should take a leverage from all these things, pick and choose your best, and think of it as like a big silo, not that their brand's over here and theirs are over here. We want everything to be in nice, tight alignment, and you're just building upon these. And that's, I hope, a quick lesson on branding this week. You can take it away, decide what you stand for. You don't have to write them down as words on a wall to make them real. You just have to know them in your heart, and that's how you just operate every day as you encounter things. One thing I didn't put in here that I'll add is where it really matters is when shit hits the fan. Anyone can live up to their brand values when the good times are happening and everyone's high-fiving each other, but it's when you have an angry client or you have a situation going sideways when you really can take a step back and go, how would this person handle this, right? And then you better handle it that way. Yes, Josh, question?
So I'm come closer. So Uber and Skip the Dishes are right now under a tremendous amount of fire for exactly what you just said. So when they built their company, they were customer-focused everything. Like if you had a problem, you complained, if you needed something, like they were cheap. But now people are getting mixed up orders or they're getting food not being delivered and you can't even get a customer service rep on the phone. And it's like they're right now sabotaging their own brand. But they're so big, and they almost monopolize the market, that if you want food delivered, you've got to call Skip. Who cares if you don't get your order? Who cares if it's not on time? Who cares if it doesn't show up? There's no more Skip credits. There's no more... It's crazy how...
Yeah, eventually you've got to live up to those brand values, for sure. It's easy to fake it for a while on a bunch of venture capital money for 10 years, but eventually you're going to have to live up to those values you say you are. So think of them and believe in them. Okay, thanks a lot for joining me again today. Remember, the Agent Pro app is live. If you want to download it, it's available on the iOS Store and Google Play Store, and all of this content gets loaded up there, as well as other great stuff. And in case you didn't notice, I am speaking at the Buzz Conference on March 30th. I'm going to be getting super vulnerable on that conversation, and not going into anything we've ever personally shared, but I know some of us in this room have had very deep conversations. So I'm going to try to be bringing that to a bigger audience. And I would encourage you, those of you in the room, to grab a ticket for that event while they're still on discount for another 7 days. They're $100 off. And if you're watching on the Zoom, it's one of the best events in Ontario, bar none. It has nothing to do with any individual brand. This conference has been bringing people together. So thanks a lot for joining me today, and we will be back next week to talk about turning sign calls into business. Thanks a lot.